Let me start with a short introduction about myself. I'm a chartered quantity surveyor, having been educated and worked in the UK and the USA, where I have gained significant experience both internationally and in Qatar. I'm currently leading SANAD geographically diversified and expansion, and I am also responsible for SANAD commercial division. I would like to start my presentation with a brief introduction about SANAD. At SANAD, we provide integrated project management services from project conception through to completion and ongoing management, ready to develop solutions that ensure excellent project outcomes. We manage the development of diverse and complex projects from universities and World Cup stadiums to transportation systems and entire cities. Our solutions cover a diverse range of sectors, including buildings, infrastructure, residential, commercial, rail and transport, sports, healthcare, education, culture, national projects, offices, master planning. SANAD was established to meet the growing needs of the construction industry in Qatar and the region as well. While we are officially formed in 2002, our roots track back to when a team of talented engineers were tasked to provide services for the development of Education City for Qatar Foundation. We have grown into being one of the leading project management consultancies in Qatar and now a prominent project and asset management firm. Today, we are an international project management consultancy, and we are in the process of setting up our international offices in the UK, USA, Turkey, Oman, and here دولة الكويت الشقيقة إن شاء الله. SANAD's portfolio comprises iconic landmarks, including the Museum of Islamic Art, the National Museum of Qatar, Qatar National Convention Center, Qatar Faculty of Islamic Studies, Education City Project, Doha Metro, and the Lusail Sports Arena, just to name a few. We are also managing the Qatar Foundation Stadium, one of the FIFA World Cup 2022 stadiums. With the continuous boom in the construction industry, the entire construction industry, from employers to consultants and contractors, are encouraged to follow the best international practices. So, is achieving best practice in the region's construction industry an impossible task? So, what is seen as current practice in the construction industry in our region? Firstly, there is a lack of a trust between parties. There is often a lack of a trust between concerned parties from the outset of the project. This may be because of doubt or uncertainty, or even due to cultural differences. In time, this may lead to lack of communication throughout the project's different phases and initiate a culture of blame. Often, the contractor and the employer are considered to be adversaries rather than partners in the project. The second challenge, the frequent use of lump sum contracts and lowest price always wins. Of course, it is important to have a price certainty for projects, and lump sum contracts are a way to achieve that. However, whilst these contracts are seen to place the risk on the contractor, they also place major pressure on the employer and his advisors to scope the work clearly and correctly. If the scope is not fully defined and written down clearly, delays and extra costs will always occur later during the project execution, as we all know. The principle of price being the lowest is not the same as lowest cost, and this must be really considered in more detail by the clients. In certain instances, the lowest priced bid may mean the highest input from the employer and his consultants. Employers need to realize that a lump sum bid with the bulk of the risk being assumed by the contractor does not come for free. In this region, there seems to be an overriding perception that passing off the risk to the contractor and getting a lump sum price on an incomplete design is the cheapest route to project completion. But of course, we all know that this is not true. Obviously, the types of contracts used by the construction industry in the world and in our region are briefly lump sum, remeasurable, cost reimbursable, target costs, and fee-based management. Some of the risks that are absolutely identifiable lie with the procurement strategy and the options that exist based on the project type, client needs, delivery schedule, etc. And of course, the procurement methodology will have a marked effect on the risk apportionment and the contracting options available to the employer and the risks and benefits associated with each one of them. Employers basically need to start considering other procurement options, such as risk-sharing, target contracts, and other procurement methods. In some other countries, there is a significant use of partnering contracts and early contractors' involvement. These contracts require early collaboration between involved parties to fully investigate project issues which can affect the successful outcome of the project, including risk. Early contractors' involvement in project strategy is a tested procurement method currently adopted elsewhere in the world, but not yet fully tested in many parts of our region, unfortunately. The third challenge or issue that we have in the construction industry, lack of advice to the employer on the risk and its potential impact to their projects. So, what is a successful project to an employer? A project that is built on time, to the required quality, and within the employer's expected budget. How many of these have you seen in the region? Very often projects don't succeed because the employer is not made aware of the risks and the potential impact of those risks. In some cases, the employer has no idea of the inherent risks and their project from the outset. They don't realize. They must be made fully aware of what they should or should not do and the potential impact. For example, what may seem to them a simple variation order could have a major effect and impact on the program, which in turn can also affect the budget as the project is prolonged and additional costs arise as a consequence. And the risk does not just start with construction. By the time construction begins, many of the risks may have already got out of control. The risk to a project and the successful management thereof should be recognized at the conception phase. Of course, others will come to light as the design progresses and then on it to tender and construction, but many are obvious right from the beginning. Best practicing for managing risk? It should be apportioned basically to the party best able to manage that risk. But is this reflected in local and regional contracts? Do we really practice and apply what we say here? The fourth risk usually apportioned to the contractor. Contractors will assume risk if the contract requires them to do so. We all know that. Or if it is in their interest to do so. But they will deal with that risk within their pricing and the programming of the project. Here are some extracts from real contracts that we actually faced in SANAD. The contractor is deemed to have allowed within his, this is a real clause actually, the contractor is deemed to have allowed within his tender price for everything implied, but not yet expressed within the contract documents. So what does that mean? What does that include basically? It includes design intent, what the engineer or what the designer acting on behalf of the employer basically intended to draw or to specify or detail, but probably forgot or did not complete properly. In addition, in another contract, for an industrial project which included extensive underground construction work beneath the ground, on a proposed 3-story building, stated, the contractor is responsible and liable for the time and cost of dealing with all existing ground and hydrological conditions. The contractor's response to that clause? Very simple. 18% of the contractor's tender price for the whole project was added to cover the potential risk within that one single clause or article. This is unfair, let alone best practice. In the end, the contractor found very few problems with the ground conditions, and the employer still had to pay him for that particular risk. The result, one very unhappy and badly advised employer, and one happy but somewhat embarrassed contractor. And finally, the final challenge that I'm going to cite today, frequent claims for additional time and money or cost. Claims are seen as an inevitable consequence of building a project. But why do such claims generally occur or arise? To summarize, they occur for the following reasons. Inadequate communication between the parties, a major issue in the construction industry that we all face. There is lack of trust. People become entrenched and don't talk to each other. Simply, they don't communicate. Excessive variation orders. The employer requirements should be fully covered and clearly defined within the original scope of work. And the employer should also be fully aware of the impact of changes throughout the project life cycle. Thirdly, unfair balance of contractual risk between the parties. Contracts should be more equitable, fairer. Badly prepared tender documents which fail to properly identify and specify the scope of work, interface and coordination issues are there. This risk basically falls fully with the employer. It should be done properly. The coordination and interface issues that the client is aware of must be considered early. It is very common to issue a tender before the design is incomplete or is complete, creating uncertainty to the contractor and major risk of delay and cost overrun to the employer himself, basically. Inefficient contract administration by all parties. Those who administer the contract should do so efficiently and effectively. We always face this problem. Not many parties know their contracts. Basically, they don't read their contracts. To ensure the efficient delivery of project through effective contracts, there needs to be a mindset, a culture shift, basically, which in my opinion is the most important aspect, beyond mere words on paper or contracts. So, how will this cultural shift come about? The industry must collectively look at how we can all make ourselves more aligned to best practices. Yes, of course we can look into the employer to play their part, but it is not just about employers or consultants. One or two forward-thinking employers or consultants will maybe make people think about what we do and what we don't, or how we do it, basically. But they cannot change the culture of our whole industry. It is about all the parties playing their part to make the industry a better and, of course, safer place to work. Contractors can also play their part. For example, rethinking their relationship with the subcontractors and suppliers, reviewing and rationalizing the supply chain, working alongside them in a collaborative relationship to ensure that there are no delays with the quality of materials and delivery programs, and thinking beyond cheapest price. Price will always be very important, as we all know and we appreciate. But contractors should also think about reducing material wastage and using materials from sustainable and local sources where they have the choice. At SANAD, we investigated the main causes and reasons of disputes and the claims in the construction industry in Qatar, and we believe that it is applicable in the region as well, and found out that one of the major causes is poorly drafted tenders and contracts. Therefore, we decided to take the initiative as a leading project management consultancy in Qatar and in the region to develop a set of tender and contract document templates that clearly state guidelines and agreements required throughout the entire contracting process. We call our integrated suite of contracts SANAD. The Arabic word SANAD translates to support, دعم. This is reflected through our integrated suite of contracts, which will act as a supportive tool across the construction industry, offering fair and transparent contractual procedures and ensuring seamless and functional allocation of liabilities and risks. We developed SANAD as part of our corporate social responsibility to the state of Qatar and the region and the Gulf. جزء من المسؤولية الاجتماعية لشركة SANAD في قطر وكذلك في الخليج إن شاء الله. SANAD was launched in April this year by the Qatar Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of State for the Council of Ministers Affairs, His Excellency Ahmed bin Abdullah bin Zayed Al Mahmoud. It embodies lessons learned from over 250 projects that SANAD has been managing since 2002 and has been completed by our leading contracts experts and staff and engineers with the support of international legal and insurance companies. What does the suite include? We have templates for construction contracts, we have template for design and build contract, and we have template for design services contracts, and we have a template for professional services contracts. Each contract contains comprehensive drafting notes, guidelines, explanatory notes basically, instructions to tenderers, appendices, annexures, allowing the employer to tailor the templates to their specific project needs and requirements, and for those who prepare the contract to properly compile the documents. They are agile, flexible, that can be used by any client, سواء في قطر أو في أي دولة من دول الخليج, with some minor modifications and amendments, of course, to suit the specific requirements in each country. So, why SANAD? SANAD contracts are available in English and Arabic. We have actually translated SANAD from English to Arabic, utilizing expert legal, technical, engineering expertise to help us in the translation as much as possible. It includes appendices and annexures, including full descriptions and explanatory for notes for processes such as change requests, payment, planning and the project controls, cost reporting, meetings, documentation, and the drawing control and contract closeout, etc. It is fully adaptable and versatile for use with any project, any procurement strategy, and any employer across every state. SANAD embodies best practices within the international construction industry and is fully compliant with laws of the state of Qatar, but as I said, with minor changes and amendments that can be used in any country in the Gulf region. Since we drafted SANAD, we have seen interest from clients in other countries, including Kuwait, Oman, West African countries, and Turkey. SANAD gives potential clients the copyright of SANAD. This is one of the advantages, that we give our clients the copyright to use SANAD. Obviously, other contract publishers will require you to pay a fee to acquire that IP, intellectual property right. We don't do that in a STAD. In return, what we do basically, we ask our potential clients to give us their feedback after 1 year or 2 years of using SANAD. There are comprehensive provisions within the general conditions of contract and the associated appendices for regular contractor, consultant reporting on all aspects of contractual obligations in terms of time, cost, quality, and safety, which may affect the deliverables and the project progress at the end of the day. There are detailed provisions for extension of time in terms of notification requirements, defined delay events. We have defined the certain technical terminologies for extension of time so that these are very clear and conspicuous in the contract from the beginning. There is also an early warning process requiring contractor consultants as a precondition to pre-notify an event which could give rise to extension of time claim and or associated cost. So this gives the parties the opportunities to be aware and to discuss the issues beforehand, actually. SANAD includes flexible terms of payment, methodologies, processes, and timing with payment milestones and appropriate verification methods, giving the employer the choice of procurement method to suit his requirement, needs, and risk, as we discussed earlier. There are specific provisions to cover clients' right to suspend the project and the associated time and cost impact as a result of the suspension. It features audit rights, novation, termination for convenience of the client. Basically, we have clear and simple provisions for claims to be notified in terms of extension of time and adjustment of the contract price, with the obligation to submit a time impact analysis clearly demonstrating the effect of delayed work on the critical path. SANAD clearly defines the requirement for substantial completion of the works, and also for predefined sections to be incorporated into the contract with associated substantial completion requirements. We have found out in some contracts that we've been managing that on behalf of our clients that their contract document don't actually include such provisions and articles to cover for early completion, substantial completion, early handover of certain parts of the project. Which leads me to say that SANAD includes provision for partial possession, where the employer wishes to take possession of any separate part of the facility or building or project prior to the actual completion of the project. SANAD contains systematic dispute resolution provisions in terms of dispute notices, referral to management committee before actually escalating the matter finally to either arbitration or the court. There are dispute avoidance provisions. Basically, the intention is to help parties identify potential problems early in the process and to enable prompt action and procedures to manage them to prevent disputes in line with global best practices. Last but not least, SANAD was developed to guide and support transparent contractual professional procedures. It was developed to encourage seamless processes, basically, and finally to promote fairness and equity between the parties in the construction process. Who is using SANAD right now? SANAD is currently being used by many of our existing clients, including Qatar Foundation, Qatar University, Qatar Museums, and Hamad Medical Corporation. So can SANAD be used outside Qatar? Yes, of course. SANAD embodies best practices within the international construction contracts and is fully compliant with the laws of the state of Qatar, but with minor amendments, as I said, it can be adopted in other countries. So, to recap, is achieving best practice in the region's construction industry an impossible task? It is without doubt a major challenge that requires the right contracts coupled with the right mindset and culture of the people who strive to achieve that. But it is certainly not impossible. Last but not least, I would like to thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope that this was an informative presentation. If anyone is interested in SANAD contracts or templates, we are available at our booth, and also you can visit our SANAD page on the STAD website, astad.qa, and we are available here, as I said, inshallah, for any clarification or help that you may need. I will leave you now with a short video about SANAD.
سند وهي مجموعة عقود منتجة من شركة ستاد. تشتمل حزمة سند على 4 نماذج من العقود تغطي مجالات الإنشاءات، التصميم والبناء، التصميم، الخدمات التخصصية. تم تطوير سند من أجل تقديم التوجيه والإرشاد للإجراءات التعاقدية ودعم تنفيذها، دفع عمليات إتمام المشروع وسلاسة إجراءاته، تخفيض تكاليف مشاريع الإنشاءات، إضفاء بيئة من النزاهة والإنصاف بين الأطراف. تلتزم حزمة سند بكافة القوانين المحلية وتضمن أفضل الممارسات العالمية مع تمسكها بمبادئ الإنصاف والمرونة والتوازن والفاعلية، ومن خلال تقديم شروط وأحكام تعاقدية أكثر توازن مع عقود سند. نهدف للجمع بين جميع الأطراف المعنية بالمشروع وتضافر جهودها. سند، دليل العقود الشامل.
شكرا لكم.